For decades, Pepsi has tried to challenge Coca-Cola. Both companies have spent billions on advertising, celebrities, sports, and massive marketing campaigns. Pepsi became one of the biggest beverage brands in the world, but there was one problem. Coca-Cola kept winning the bigger battle. So why couldn't Pepsi overtake Coca-Cola? The answer isn't simply about taste. It's about branding, distribution, marketing, and strategy. This is the story of one of the greatest business rivalries in history. Part 1. The giants begin. Coca-Cola and Pepsi both started more than a century ago. Coca-Cola was created in 1886. Pepsi came later, beginning in the 1890s. Both companies were selling essentially the same type of product, a sweet, carbonated cola, but over time, they developed very different identities. Coca-Cola focused heavily on tradition, consistency, and emotional branding. Pepsi increasingly positioned itself as the younger, more modern alternative, and that difference would become extremely important. Part 2. The Cola Wars. As the soft drink industry grew, the competition became intense. Pepsi challenged Coca-Cola through aggressive advertising and pricing. Then came the famous Pepsi Challenge. Consumers were encouraged to taste Pepsi and Coca-Cola without knowing which was which. Pepsi used the results to argue that people preferred its taste. It was a clever marketing strategy, but winning a taste test wasn't the same thing as winning the entire market. Part 3. Coca-Cola's secret weapon. Coca-Cola had something incredibly powerful, a global brand built over generations. Its distinctive bottle, logo, color, advertising, and association with happiness had become deeply familiar to consumers. Coca-Cola wasn't simply selling a drink, it was selling a feeling. That emotional connection made the brand incredibly difficult to attack. Part 4. The biggest mistake. In 1985, Coca-Cola made one of the most controversial decisions in its history. The company changed its original formula and introduced new Coke. Consumers reacted strongly. The backlash became so intense that Coca-Cola eventually brought the original formula back as Coca-Cola Classic. For Pepsi, this looked like an enormous opportunity, but Coca-Cola turned the crisis into something unexpected. The return of the original Coke reminded consumers just how emotionally attached they were to the brand. A mistake became a powerful lesson in brand loyalty. Part 5. Pepsi changes the game. Pepsi didn't simply sit back. The company became famous for targeting younger consumers. It signed major celebrities and invested heavily in entertainment and sports. Pepsi wanted to be seen as the modern alternative. Its campaigns featured some of the biggest stars in popular culture. This strategy worked. Pepsi became a huge global brand, but Coca-Cola continued to benefit from its enormous distribution network and long-established identity. Part 6. It's bigger than taste. Here's the important business lesson. The best product doesn't always win. A company can have a great product and still lose customers if its branding, distribution, pricing, or strategy isn't strong enough. Coca-Cola had built an enormous system around its drink. Restaurants, supermarkets, vending machines, events, sports, fast food partnerships, and millions of retail locations around the world. The battle wasn't happening only inside the bottle. It was happening everywhere the consumer made a purchasing decision. Part 7. Pepsi's bigger empire. There's another important detail. PepsiCo wasn't simply a cola company. It developed a much broader food and beverage portfolio, including major snack brands. That gave PepsiCo a powerful business beyond cola. So while Coca-Cola remained a dominant beverage company, PepsiCo built a massive combination of drinks and snacks. In other words, Pepsi didn't necessarily need to beat Coca-Cola at everything. It could build a different kind of empire. Ending. So, did Pepsi lose? Not exactly. Pepsi became one of the world's most recognizable beverage brands and built an enormous global business. But Coca-Cola maintained a remarkable advantage in brand recognition, distribution, and emotional connection with consumers. And that's what makes this rivalry so fascinating. The lesson isn't simply Coca-Cola was better than Pepsi. The real lesson is this: a product gets you into the market, but branding, distribution, and strategy can determine how long you stay there. Two drinks, two companies, one of the greatest marketing battles in history. And that's the money behind the story. If you enjoy stories about how the world's biggest companies rise, struggle, and compete, subscribe to Money Behind the Story.